Welcome to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. On the show today, we've got Texas Congressman Pat Fallon and talk show host and friend of CPAC Now, Bill Walton. And joining me, Matt Schlapp. I'm Mercedes Schlapp. Great
How
to
are you
be
doing,
here.
sweetheart? Doing good?
It's been a long week. It's been a long summit in Europe for President Biden and the European allies. So I can't wait to get the reaction from Congressman Fallon on this.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Bill Walton will be very complimented that you call him a talk show host. He's a former CEO of a major financial corporation. He's a member of our board. He's a dear friend and doing a great job on the Bill Walton Show, which airs every Monday night at 7 p.m. here on CPAC Now at conservative.org. So he's doing great.
And remember, we're going to keep expanding our CPAC programming. It's because of viewers like you all. Our programs are growing, so it's wonderful. We're getting a great response.
And now we are really pleased to be joined by a great new conservative in the House of Representatives who was also great conservative champion in the state of Texas in the legislature. He's on the Armed Services Committee. He's on the House Oversight and Reform Committee. He's a proud member of the Republican Study Committee, which is doing a great job under Jim Banks. And the most important thing about Congressman Pat Fallon is he is a proud domer, and strangely enough, looks a lot younger than me, but we graduated from Notre Dame the same year. How are you, sir?
Matt, Mercy, how are y'all doing?
We're doing great.
We're doing great. We're very excited. Our daughter will be going to Notre Dame in the fall, so hopefully we'll make it to some of the football games. But I was telling Matt, you played on the football team when Lou Holtz was coach. I think that makes you a little cooler than Matt Schlapp, quite frankly. Sorry.
Hey, that's a dream come true if I can be cooler than Matt Schlapp.
Okay, Congressman, I got to tell you we'll get into the issues here, but I got to tell you a great Notre Dame moment. I watched the team, the national championship team, from the student section that you played for. So that's pretty cool from my standpoint. You're in Congress with another great Notre Dame grad, Mike Kelly,
Yes.
from the great state of Pennsylvania, who I believe also won a national championship a little earlier. And so I took my two older daughters to watch a game at the University of Notre Dame. We have a nephew who's there actually in the Holy Cross Seminary, Tommy Searle. And I'm walking through the Gold Dome, and who walks by the three of us but the great coach, Lou Holtz. And I said, Coach, could I introduce you to my two girls? And I started to tell him who I was, and he said, I know who you are, see you on my TV every day, which kind of made my day. So you got to play for him, but I got that little moment.
No, you know what? Coach Holtz is a great American and wonderful, stalwart conservative. And, you know, his former players, most of us do an impression of him, but we don't have enough courage to do it while he's in the room.
Well, I want to see that. We'll turn off the camera, and then you're going to do it.
Exactly. But getting off of the topic of Notre Dame and getting into the news of the day, you tweeted out just a few hours ago, America will not be respected as long as Joe Biden is president. Let me ask you, Congressman, you've seen the press conference. You've seen his engagement not only with the European allies, but also with the Russian president. What's your take about President Biden?
You know, Mercy, you watch what he was saying, and it didn't even seem like he was speaking English. It was like a new language he invented. I would think it was called mush. It didn't make any sense. He wasn't conjugating verbs. There were no coherent thoughts. And let's be really honest here. When you have a summit with Vladimir Putin, I mean, we've been sparring with the Soviet/Russians for 100+ years, and the Russian bear, right? So it's a good figurative representation of the Russians. If you encounter a bear in the wilderness, the one thing you don't do is run, because they will chase after you and eat you. You have to project and show strength and size, and it's the same thing with Putin. If we're strong, Trump, I think honestly they were afraid of President Trump because he wasn't going to take any gruff. He wasn't going to let him get away with anything. And then you have Biden, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. He just laid down and let them go forward with it. And then he cancels our own XL pipeline here in this country, threatening a 50-year goal of energy independence for America. That's not projecting strength. It's projecting weakness.
No, that is very well said. And, as we look forward, we have when we're in these diplomatic situations, it seems like the Biden administration is put on defense because our opponents overseas, the Chinese, the Russians, they're using this radical language that we see here in America against us by basically saying, why should I listen to you about human rights? Because America is, intrinsically racist or institutionally racist. It's amazing and gross to hear that language coming back at our diplomats.
Yeah, and there's no evidence of any systemic racism in our country, and yet the left, they use anecdotal, they use examples and anecdotes to try to prove a point, and there's no scientific methodology to back up what they're saying. In fact, the evidence shows the exact opposite, but they don't want to use logic. They want to use emotion. I said it in a committee hearing yesterday, the Oversight Committee. Corey Bush went before me, and I said, well, I was unaware that the climate was racist, which he really honestly claimed. Fossil fuels also, Matt and Mercy, are racist. And the COVID virus is racist. I mean, it's getting to be, it's so hyperbolic, it's to the absurd at this point.
You're missing infrastructure is racist. And everything is infrastructure. So it's all these, this twisting of the language and these twisting of words. And I really do think that the American people are fed up with being called racist, using that whole white privilege, the whole critical race theory. I know in your state of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott has banned critical race theory in the schools. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because what critical race theory is doing, it's really communist race theory. It's tearing our country apart. I mean, when I walk to this Capitol every day, on the dome, up top of the Capitol dome, there's a statue. And right underneath that statue, it says, E pluribus unum, from many, one. We have to unite as Americans. We have so much more in common than we do that are different about all of us. And that's the great thing about being a conservative. Conservatives do not care what you are. We care who you are. And we understand that success and talent and ability and skill comes in every shape, size, and shade. And when anyone accuses us with these awful pejoratives from the mainstream media and the progressive left, they're insulting not just us, but our parents, because our parents raised us the right way, particularly as Christians, as many conservatives are, that we understand that every human being was and is a reflection and is created in the image of the Almighty. And we act like that. And to be accused of anything less is just grossly insulting.
No, it's true. I was on television earlier in the day, and the topic, as it always seems like it is white privilege and the racism in our society. And it's funny, I got done with TV and my hands were shaking. It was hard to steady myself because we all know that what their charge is, that America is irredeemable, that we're deplorable, is really gets to the heart of us, because we know people of faith that if we are bigoted and racist, we don't get to have eternal life with our Savior. So it's a pretty serious charge, and we got to find a better place. And we appreciate what you're saying. We appreciate what Governor Abbott did. In the state of Texas, this ruby red state, what's their reaction to all this craziness and socialism and Marxism that they're hearing out of Washington, D.C.?
Well, that's true, Matt. What this critical race theory and these charges of racism are all about, it's just a cover to implement socialist policies and redistribution of wealth. That's all it is. And it's really what communism, what did they divided people on class, right? So now they're just trying to use it, choosing race is that regard. So in Texas, the rank and file folks, the great Americans that make this country what it is, are fed up, just like you said. And they just we're all trying to work toward a meritocracy, at least those on the right. And because that's the dream. I mean, look at the sacrifice that our forefathers, I'm talking every one of your parents, mine, Mercy's, our grandparents and their grandparents, and we're living what they dreamed. We have achieved this, but the left constantly, I think it really, in some ways, it has a root in like mental illness. They can never be happy. In fact, yesterday they said in the Oversight Committee that the climate is very racist and it's killing people of color. And so I said, let's talk about some data. In 1900, the life expectancy of a Black American was 33 years of age. Before COVID, just last year, it was 74 years of age. So it's like a 230% increase. Things have gotten a lot better. And no country is perfect, but we're the closest thing to it.
Yeah, I think one of the issues we're all seeing is the crisis on the border. Obviously, Kamala Harris on a very defensive posture when it comes to the border. Really, I think trying to avoid not only answering the simple question of when she's going, but avoiding taking the trip altogether. But it looks like former President Trump is joining Governor Greg Abbott down in Texas. And we've seen the governor launch the border wall project with a $250 million down payment. But there are challenges to this, right, Congressman? Because you have the fact that the federal government is the one who establishes the border. And so how is this going to work in terms of Texas being able to build fencing or border wall in the places that we need it? In Texas.
You know, Mercy, we're calling it the Biden border crisis, many folks. It's really the Biden border catastrophe. I mean, it is catastrophic. I went down to the border 2 months ago. I'd been down several times before, and we walked into the Donna holding facility. They used to call them cages, by the way, but now that Biden's in office, they're holding facilities. And there were supposed to be only 250 people as a max in the capacity of that facility. They had 5,700 people there the day that we visited. 3,700 unaccompanied minors, almost exclusively from Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. Combined population of those three small countries is 34.5 million. And under Joe Biden, the United States taxpayer is subsidizing the largest human smuggling and sexual trafficking operation history has ever known. It is grotesque because what's happening is these cartels are telling these people they're broke. They don't have any money for even the transit. They say, we'll get you to the United States, but you owe us. It's indentured servitude. And these young women, what do you think the 20-year-old woman they smuggle up here is going to be doing? You know, they tell them they're going to be roofers or they're going to be working in a restaurant, and really it's sexual trafficking. And then Biden, when they get here, the cartels tell them, I want you in Detroit. So say you have family there. You tell them you have a friend in Baltimore. And then they end up working for the cartels, compelled to do so, because if they don't fulfill their obligation to the cartel, their families will be harmed and or murdered in their home countries. This is the truth. And I want to thank you and Matt for having me on so we can share this truth with the American people.
So I come from the state of Kansas, and there are states with less populations than the state of Kansas. You just said about 34 million people in these countries. We're going to get between 5 and 10% of their shared population into this country before the midterm elections. They are essentially adding new states to the United States of America without going through the process of adding a state. It's not just about Puerto Rico. It's not just about Washington, D.C. becoming a state. It's about having the populations of what would be a new state come through this graceful situation at the border. But the other thing that's going on in our population is Texas is blowing up with people fleeing socialism. Yeah. What's the positive impact you're having on your communities?
It really is, because there's 49 other states, and Texas is the only major state that is, solid red. Florida's done well, but they're somewhat purple. And we have limited government, low taxes, reasonable regulation. That's going to draw people there. In fact, if I can tell you a quick anecdote, when I was in the Air Force 30 years ago, I was in Wichita Falls at Shepherd Air Force Base, and I had grown up in the People's Republic of Massachusetts, sought political asylum in the Republic of Texas, and she was asking me a series of questions. I'm a second lieutenant in processing at Shepherd Air Force Base, and she said, what state would you like to claim residency in? I didn't know any better. I was 22. I sat up a little straighter, and I said, Massachusetts. And she put her pen down. And she said, the state of Massachusetts has a 5.6% state income tax. The state of Texas does not have an income tax. She picked her pen back up. What state would you like to claim residency in? And I said, Texas. That's not a unique story. People will flow toward freedom and liberty. Let's be really clear about this. China has 14 countries that border China. They don't have any immigration problems. Nobody's trying to get into China, save one country, North Korea, because they have even less liberty. Just like a river, people flow toward liberty. So in our states, it's interesting that California has lost an electoral vote. Texas is gaining 2, Florida is gaining 1, because people flow toward liberty. And when we saw in COVID is New York and California, Illinois, they had no regard whatsoever for small business. And they thought that some people were essential and some weren't. So they shut their states down. People saw what socialism really is. And a lot of people are coming to freedom. Texas, Florida.
One quick thing. California has lost a congressional seat for the first time in our nation's history. That tells you something.
Matt, with that beautiful weather, and that ocean. And I mean, people don't come to Texas for our majestic mountain vistas or our
No.
refreshingly cool August afternoons. They come here
No.
because they have more liberty.
That's right. But talking about more liberty, we're seeing the crackdown, continual crackdown of the Chinese communists on the people of Hong Kong. And we're seeing so many changes moving towards a strong grip over over Hong Kong. Give us your readout in terms of how you think President Biden has done so far in dealing with China.
Major, Mercy, thanks for the question. A major, huge error on Biden's part, you know, the commander in chief of this country, is China announced, the communist Chinese announced they were going to increase their military spending by 7%. Okay, we get a lot of classified briefings. Obviously, I can't share with you being on the Armed Services Committee, but that's out in the public domain. So we should, at the very minimum, I mean, I think we should match it, but we should, at the very minimum, take inflation and then pop up spending by 3% above inflation. That will keep parity and keep an advantage for our country, because it'll be a very dark day if the Chinese communists ever become dominant and the world's only superpower. And they have that intent. That's exactly what their goal is. And look at the agreement they made with the British vis-a-vis Hong Kong in 1997. Margaret Thatcher, I heard her speak in Dallas years ago about this. And she was very proud of the fact that she had negotiated a 50-year transition, if you will. It was going to be one country, two systems. Okay, they couldn't even wait until 2047. It's 2021, not even halfway through, and they're already cracking down. And they have their eyes on Taiwan. They're licking their chops, and we have to show deterrent. We need to make sure they understand that there are dire consequences if they cross the straits. And I don't think Joe Biden is signaling, and he's signaling, again, weakness, and that might entice them to make a move.
Yeah, no, we appreciate your message. We appreciate your service. Thank you for what you're doing. The swamp needs a lot of help, and I'm glad Texas is going to be hopefully sending 2 more Republicans to Congress. As the final question, how many seats will the Republicans pick up in their quest to gain the majority back?
Well, if I was setting the line, Matt, in Vegas, I'd set it at 27, and I'm going over.
Wow,
I like it.
That's good.
I like it. It could be higher, but I like it. Congressman Fallon from the great state of Texas, thanks for joining us today on CPAC Now, and we're going to be right back after this short break with Bill Walton of the Bill Walton Show. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. And one of our friends just got canceled on YouTube. So we want to bring him in. Bill Walton, he's a board member of American Conservative Union and also is the host of the Bill Walton Show that you can watch every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mercy. Hey, Matt. Great to see you guys.
Good to see you, Bill. What are they doing to you now to try to silence you?
Well, I got an email from YouTube yesterday morning. They said that one of my shows had violated their community standards, specifically their medical misinformation guidelines. And of course, their medical misinformation guidelines say that things like, unless you listen to the World Health Organization or the CDC, that you're violating their guidelines. Well, we all know that the World Health Organization is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. But anyway, so setting that aside, I got an email saying we'd violated it. They were taking it down, but they were being nice to us and that they were only going to take this down and they weren't going to give us a strike. Evidently, if you get more than one, you get one strike. If they give you one, then you get 2 strikes, and then 3 strikes, you lose your channel. And so
Wow.
Now the thing that makes us curious is it was a conversation with Tom Fenton. We all know Tom Fenton.
Great guy.
And, great defender of liberty. And the show and was actually recorded the second week after the election. And what Tom and I were talking about was the election. And at the time, and I still feel this way, you know, we felt Trump had won, and we were talking about the things that we could do in Georgia, Arizona. You guys know this territory. You were there. To get into what really happened with these election results. And that was the show. It was about 16 minutes. And there's only one point in the show where we even brought up anything related to COVID. And Tom made a joke. He said, You know, Bill, we're going to have to stop comparing COVID to the flu, because the left is going to take advantage of that. And the next time we get the flu, they're all going to lock us down again. So it was a throwaway. And so the thing that makes me wonder about it a bit is that, you know, you think about the massive amounts of information that YouTube monitors. There's something like, I guess if you watch an hour of the material put up on YouTube, just what's it put up in 1 hour, it would take you 82 years to watch it.
Wow.
YouTube has something like, nobody knows the exact number. It's like 20 to 30 to 40,000 people monitoring content all over the world. And then they have all these algorithms they use and artificial intelligence they use. And since we got this email, I've been digging into their algorithm and how this actually works. And no one seems to know. It's a state secret. And, you know, we're not alone. Our show's not alone in getting canceled like this. They've canceled, you know, Donald Trump no longer has a Twitter account even. And, you know, the list of people who've had their shows pulled is long. But the other thing is I had another show pulled with Jay Richards just about that same time in November of after the election, I guess it was October, talking about COVID. And that was pulled for medical misinformation. And all we really said in that show was we thought the costs of the lockdown far exceeded the benefits of the lockdown, which history has shown to be true.
True. That's right.
And
what's great. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, it's just that there's so many things that we now know to be true. For example, it was medical misinformation to say that the virus had come out of a lab in Wuhan. And that was verboten. You know, hydroxychloroquine, that was proven, that was shown that we're not supposed to talk about that. Well, that actually works. Ivermectin, another example of a drug which is very cheap and works, that's now been shown to work. That's banned material. And so our ability to...
Bill, it's banned till it's banned, because what we've seen with Facebook is that they did ban the whole lab leak theory for quite some time. They brought it back after there was new information based on it. Don't you think that these tech companies jump way too quickly in terms of reaching a conclusion, number one? And number two, don't you think that they also, they're so honed in on conservatives and anything that would in any way disagree with their narrative and the narrative of the left, that it really puts us in a very weakened position?
Well, the culture of Silicon Valley is totally woke. I mean, Victor David Hanson's written about the fact he thinks the new religion in Silicon Valley is wokeism. And if you look at the applications, where if you want to apply for a job with Google, which also owns Facebook, or I'm sorry, YouTube, there are all sorts of questions about diversity and all the sort of politically correct ways you're supposed to think. And unless you answer those questions properly, you're not going to get a job there. And so it's not only at the CEO, it's not only out of the C-suite, but it's a set of values that pervades that entire culture. And you know, they hear us talk about what we know to be true, and they think we're somehow defaming their religion because we're not woke.
Yep.
I don't know if I'd give him the credit of having any religion, but I agree with you completely, Bill. And this is also spilled out into their political giving. We have a huge percentage swath of Republicans in the House and the Senate who are told they can't get any PAC contributions from major publicly held corporations because they believe in voter ID or the Second Amendment or the Constitution. You and your beautiful wife Sarah and Mercy and I are going to be helping Mike Lee at an event next week. Isn't it important for grassroots Americans around this country to rise up and say, if these corporations are going to attack these brave politicians, it's time for us to get involved and to help them, because they're kind of our last line of defense in the House and Senate.
Yeah, Mike Lee goes out on point almost every single day with true things, and for that he's attacked. And there are a lot of people in his state that are trying to knock him off. So he's sort of number one on my list of a man we need to support. But I think your point about the grassroots getting involved in this, you've been involved in raising consciousness about woke corporations. We need to hold these people's feet, the CEO's feet to the fire. My my thought is all these companies, they're not nameless, faceless organisms. They're run by people. And so to the extent we see corporations like Coca-Cola or Major League Baseball or, the list goes on, Levi Strauss, we need to call out their CEOs and ask them to explain to their customers why they're trying to bring about these really bad politics.
So let me ask you, Bill, you've been in this world of business, run companies, been very successful entrepreneur. Is it going to get worse before it gets better? Are these corporations ever going to change their way?
Well, ever's a long time, but I do think it's going to get worse before it gets better, because as we've seen, the left's march through our major institutions, which started with the universities and Hollywood and now is going into the C-suites, is pervasive. And the thing about the CEOs may or may not be political. I don't think most of them are. But if you look at, and Matt, you know this because of your consulting work, look who staffs the HR department, who staffs the community relations department, who staffs the marketing department. That's all been infiltrated by the left. And you even look at ads now on TV, and the evidence of political correctness or wokeism abounds. I don't see us turning that around unless perhaps we get a strong spokesman. One of the things we loved about Donald Trump is that he was dead set to call out political correctness in all its forms. If we don't get him back, we need somebody who's able to do much the same thing, because we need leadership for people to rally behind, I think.
So that's a perfect transition, because we're all going to be in Dallas for CPAC July 9th through the 11th. There's a couple things about the CPAC that are unique. First of all, Donald Trump is coming back. He's going to start up his rallies. At the end of June, he's going to be speaking out for candidates like Max Miller.
He's going to the border too.
He's going to the border.
Right.
He's going to be at CPAC. We're seeing a big response from all different kinds of people wanting to be at CPAC, including people that are saying we want to start investing in groups that are really going to make a difference, which is a new component to what's going on in CPAC. Do you think that the mission of CPAC, which is to bring grassroots activists together, is needed now more than ever, or are we playing the fiddle while Rome is burning?
No, I think CPAC can play an enormous role. You and I have talked about the idea of using the word coalition to replace conference, because I think CPAC, ACU, whatever our brand's going to be, is ideally suited to do that, because we've already got a big grassroots organization. You guys are doing it internationally in Japan and South America and so on and so forth. I can't think of any organization that's got the broad reach that we have. And you're right to be taking it to Dallas. Why not take it to someplace that likes us? We took
yes.
Exactly.
Florida was a pretty good.
I don't know if anyone likes us anymore, but I'm gonna hope that they do.
Well, did you see the Babylon Bee? Maybe Trump's going to announce his new hotel. They said he was going to build a 14,000 mile long hotel it was all gold. It was right on the Mexican border, but the doors only open one way.
So, Bill, one of the things you understand is the economy. I'm seeing what I'm calling the Biden inflation.
Yeah.
Where do you, when you're, for people out there who are trying to figure out where the direction of our economy, is going, what's your analysis?
Well, we've got two economies, putting it in very, very oversimplistic terms, and one economy, that's the economy that benefited greatly from the lockdown. Think of all the tech companies and all the multinationals and all the ones that could benefit from a virtual workforce. That economy, those stocks are sky high right now, and so both those companies and anyone investing in stock market is pretty happy right now. The people who aren't happy are all the people that ran all the small businesses that governors and state bureaucrats decided were non-essential, and they're all struggling to come back. That's been papered over by the $300 per week checks that's been sent out. That's going to go away, and a lot of those checks have also been there to support, landlords of small retail businesses, and And so we're going to see when the government money starts drying up just where things are. It could be that the water recedes and we see what's really on the bottom of the lake. And then the thing that's on top of that is we've got the Federal Reserve acting as if there's no tomorrow. I mean, they've been buying up all the corporate bonds, all the junk bonds still. They're still buying mortgage-backed securities, even though we've got a housing shortages and housing shortages going up. I don't think we've ever been here before. Debt as a percentage of GDP is about 110, 115%, highest since World War II. The basic economy is doing pretty well, but I fear that with the spending and with what the Fed is doing, government once again could screw it up.
Yeah, it's tragic, and it's tragic when you think about the staples that the forgotten men and women have to pay for to live their lives. Food prices are going to be going through the roof. We've already seen it with gasoline prices, all other energy prices, heating and cooling your house, all those prices are going to be going through the roof as fossil fuels are more constrained by this alarmism over global climate change.
Well, some of these prices are temporary supply chain blips because they did shut down the supply chain. If you notice, there's shortages in all sorts of stores in different categories. But what isn't short term is what they're doing to the energy industry. I mean, they have this fantasy that we're going to have windmills on top of our cars to make them go. We cannot thrive as an economy without a realistic assessment of what fossil fuels actually do for us. And wind and solar is never going to take its place. And we've got these fantasy pronouncements. Biden goes to Europe to the G7 and they announce a $40 trillion quote infrastructure package. And if you look at it, it's really the same old, same old. It's equity and it's climate change and it's so on and so forth. Not going to be adding to our productive economy. On one hand, I'm very optimistic because I think a lot of us that think the way we do are pretty tough people, and you're not going to take us out, and we'll figure out a way to make things happen for ourselves and our families. But we just have to work a lot harder than the elites, and the elites, I think, are not giving us. They're not going in a good direction.
Okay, so Bill, we know you're a busy guy. You got to get along with your day, but we can't let you leave without telling the audience what's your show going to be on Monday.
Well, it should be a great show. We've got Peter Pry coming on, and Peter Pry is one of the most savvy national defense analysts we have, and we're going to be talking about something which I think will be upsetting to people, which is nuclear war. And it's something that hadn't come up in the last, people haven't been talking about it. But the Biden administration is about to push getting rid of ICBMs. And of course, ICBMs have been the core of our national defense for 5 or 6 decades. And as Peter will get into, you get rid of that at great peril. And like everything else, well, we've been dismantling our infrastructure and our defense capabilities. China and Russia have been building theirs like mad. We've been assiduously towing the line with some of these agreements we made. They haven't bothered at all. And during this time, China's innovated in a way. We know there's been an economic threat. We know there's a cultural threat. We see that with Confucius Institutes, but they're now, I mean, the military threat is as great as it's ever been.
Yep.
So that's the show. It's not going to be a laugh riot, but everybody ought to tune in because it's one of those issues. We're not talking about it now, but we will be talking about it. We will be talking about it. It will be on people's mind because we've got to be able to defend our country. And a lot of people on the left don't want to do that.
Sadly, we got to defend the whole world, and they want to give Iran a nuclear weapon. It's troublesome stuff. Now, that's a little bit of bad news. But everyone needs to tune in on Monday at 7 p.m. and watch Bill on the Bill Walton Show. But after the short break, we are going to bring you, drum roll please, some good news.
It's CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. But we're going to talk about the good news, right? We need lots of hope and love in this great country. And that's why I want to share with you a couple things that are happening today. Matt, what's the big announcement?
The big announcement is the vice chairman of the American Conservative Union, Charlie Giroux, is announcing his candidacy for the governorship of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We're really proud of Charlie. You know, I've worked very closely with Charlie. You have as well.
Yes.
He is the quintessential American success story. He was born in Brazil and was adopted by great, loving American parents who raised him, and he's a great conservative. He's been very successful in his career. And what I love about Charlie, despite the fact he didn't grow up speaking English, when he came here, he learned it, and he is a great communicator. He understands what America's all about. He's going to do a great job communicating our values to the people of Pennsylvania.
Right. A strong manager, brilliant mind, someone who I've really enjoyed working with, and I know he would make a great governor of Pennsylvania. So please go out and support Charlie Giroux. We want to let you see his announcement video. So take a look.
I was born in a slum in Brazil, without hope or promise. My birth mother's dream was for me to be able to come to America because she thought that perhaps here I'd be able to learn how to read. Then I was adopted by two loving missionaries who dedicated their lives to God and to others. We moved to Pennsylvania, where I found my home in the birthplace of democracy. While attending Villanova Law School, I helped elect Ronald Reagan president, who became an American legend for conservative values and the preservation of our freedom. It's not right what's happening to Pennsylvania, with elected politicians trying to move up while jobs and people are moving out. And if you try to say anything about it, they and the liberal media try to cancel you out. Well, we have a message for them. We will never be silenced, bought off, or called off by liberals, socialists, or anarchists out to destroy what our founding fathers sacrificed for and our soldiers bled for. I'm running for governor to make our voice heard, to end the assaults on our energy jobs, the attacks on our values, and the threats to our elections. Because when you grow up the hard way, you've got nothing to lose, but everything to fight for.
Charlie Giroux for governor.
I mean, Charlie just has such an amazing story, and we look forward to supporting him and helping him out and getting the grassroots excited and getting him elected.
Yeah, and we got to elect these good governors like in the state of Pennsylvania, because
it really
we saw
makes a
what
difference.
happened in the last election.
That's right. Now we turn over to Matt's tweets of the day. First, Matt, Paul Bedard, who I really love. He's
Great
with the
journalist.
Washington Examiner. A poll just came out, and Paul said, bishops beware, 74% say no communion for Biden. At Catholic Vote Survey said politicians like Biden who don't follow church teachings like abortion should not present themselves to a priest for communion. And you tweet out, if abortion is killing you, see, Matt, you got to put commas in between that stuff. It should be, if abortion is killing, comma, you can't treat like jaywalking.
That's right. I don't use commas in any of my tweets
confusing people like
on purpose to try to confuse people. But the point is this: what the Pope and what the cardinals he's appointed in America, what they have to understand is that abortion isn't just something that's wrong. It's the ultimate wrongdoing, because it's the killing of the innocents, right? Someone who's not even had a chance to take a breath in this world yet, but is a human being. And because they're being so political, and because they want to play nice with Joe Biden, they are trying to sidestep this whole question of, do they enforce Catholic teaching, which is already very clear, which is that if you're involved and engaged in abortion, you're not in the state of grace and you can't receive communion. So that's some Catholic theology. But what's very important for us to understand is this is not like the old days when it was like Democratic politicians mostly who were pro-choice, and then bishops saying, no, you have to change your votes on abortion. What Biden has done is taken two very additional, really risky, scary, radical steps. He wants us all to pay for abortions.
Yes.
He wants to eliminate the Hyde Amendment, which allowed people of faith to not pay for abortion. And if you're in the healthcare industry, they want to make it nearly impossible for you to have a conscience clause, so that if you're a person of faith, not just Catholics, others, Muslims, Jews, Protestants, you can't say that because of my faith I can't be involved in abortion. You would be compelled in your job site to be involved in abortion. This is simply un-American. This is against religious freedom. This is against the First Amendment. If the bishops don't make that very clear, that this is a bridge too far, then it's going to be a bad moment for the church, and I quite think it would be scandalous.
Right, and President Biden, obviously a supporter of late-term abortions as well.
No restrictions at all on abortion.
That's right.
Not for reasons of sex selection. He's okay with it being legal to kill unborn girls because you want a boy. The most extreme stuff we're talking about, and this is just not where the American people are.
Right, and a big supporter of Planned Parenthood, as we know, the largest provider of abortions. Let's go to the next tweet, another tweet of the day. This is in response to Phil Frady. Who is Phil Frady, Schlatt?
I don't know.
Oh, great. Okay, apparently the GOP...
I don't have to know you to respond to you.
You do. This is the interesting thing about Matt. He does almost respond to even the craziest of tweets. Apparently the
She doesn't know you, Phil. You might not be crazy.
Okay,
So
Phil,
we
you might
apologize.
be a great guy. Let's figure this out. Okay, apparently the GOP opposes making it easier for citizens to vote. As the country grows younger and more diverse, the Republican Party grows older, smaller, and wider. Again, he did not use any commas. This is driving me crazy. But you respond, let's see how you do with your grammar. Phil should put a comma. Voting is already easy. The issue with Stacey Abrams and Mark Elias is they want to make cheating easy.
Yeah, that's right. Well, first of all, Phil, I hate to tell you, but the Republican Party is the party that freed the slaves. The Republican Party is actually growing more diverse over time.
Absolutely.
Donald Trump won states like Florida and Texas because he got an increasing percentage with Hispanic voters, which you had a lot to do with. So that's the first point. The second point is that the reason why Stacey Abrams and Mark Elias go around this country trying to have no rules on voting is because they are facilitating all this cheating that's going on around the country.
So what are we doing here at ACU?
I just want to say one thing about that. So when the Democrats compete against the Democrats, and I have a dirty little secret to tell you that Mercy and I voted in a Democratic primary in Virginia. What was the very first thing they asked for us when we walked in that Democratic vote? They asked for ID because when Democrats compete against Democrats, they actually start following the rules.
Right.
And it's usually socialists against Democrats, right? The more liberal Democrats. And when our daughter registered online to vote for the first time in a Democratic primary, kind of interesting, they denied her ability to vote because she hadn't registered early enough, which is fine with us. You should follow the rules.
Right.
But I wonder if that had happened in a general election when it was a Democrat versus a Republican. A young Hispanic woman walks in. My guess is she would have gotten a provisional ballot. So what we're doing here at the American Conservative Union is we're listening to you and we're standing up for your votes. We're making sure that your votes are taken in the spirit of the Constitution, which is one person, one vote, and to make sure that those policies that you vote for actually occur. And what's happening too often is not only is voting getting watered down, as there's so much cheating going on in the system with ballot harvesting and other illegal and obnoxious ideas, but also the woke corporations and all these elite voices coming in and saying that the policies you want to see are actually racist and un-American.
Well, and the other point on this is the fact that we've seen, and it was the Media Research Center who put a montage together showing the fact that all of the media, this liberal media, they are pushing this narrative, calling these voting laws that allow for free and fair elections, that they're voting restrictions.
That's right.
Voter restrictions. That's the language they're using. And so we need to push back and expose the lies of the left.
That's right. And we should show that video because it's a great video.
It is a great video.
And then you tweet too. It's not just me.
It depends. I can't keep up with you. Like, I get like one tweet out of...
She has very good punctuation in her tweets.
And lots of good comments.
So at Mercedes Schlapp responds to this ridiculous idea that the Biden administration cancels pipelines in America while they greenlight Russian pipelines into Germany, into European capitals. You bring this up by saying Biden gets rid of energy independence within the U.S. by stopping the Keystone pipeline, yet encourages energy independence abroad by supporting the Russia-German pipeline. these are policies that don't make sense. And you brought this up on the show the other day.
Right.
It is such a good point.
It is. It's true.
If fossil fuels are evil, why are they okay in Russia and not here?
The fossil fuels are racist. That's what they're saying.
Oh,
Sean.
that's right. I
Don't
always
forget
forget
about that. But we've got CPAC Texas around the corner. Countdown is happening. Lots of CPAC planning happening as well.
Wait, it's going to be starting here in a few minutes. I think it's already started, actually.
All right, keep going.
The staff works hard, and today we announced that Marsha Blackburn, great senator, the most conservative woman in Congress with a nearly perfect voting record, is going to be coming to CPAC. Of course, Charlie Giroux, who we just talked about, is coming to CPAC. Glenn Beck, who is just a perfect voice for this time, is going to be coming to CPAC. A new congressman from Texas, Lance Gooden, is going to be coming to Texas, and Ronnie Jackson, your former colleague,
yes.
a lot of your former colleagues, Chad Wolf, Secretary David Bernhardt. We're going to hope to get Scavino down there. You think we can get Scavino?
I'm working on it.
We're trying to get Scavino. Stephen Miller, Brooke Rollins, a whole bunch of people that Mercy worked with.
And of course, President Donald Trump will be closing it out.
That's right, and you need to join us. Go to conservative.org, get your tickets, or watch the beautiful live stream that will be happening.
That's right.
And more than anything else, feel hopeful about your country. Stand up. Fight for your country. This is the time when we all got to band together and do it. America is a wonderful place, perhaps the greatest country that's ever been created. Love her. She needs you to defend her. Put up your flag. Smile. Shake hands. Don't be scared. Go live your life that God put you on this earth to live. And we're going to be right back with you 3 times next week.
That is right.
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Yes, and
great shows. Mercy and Regina do all the work. I just stand here and talk.
He just stands here and looks pretty. Good night.